The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the streetlights, reflecting the weight of a truth I wasn't ready to face. I stood outside the office, my heart pounding as my boss, Ethan, waved me toward his car with a smile that felt too warm for a Monday night. What began as an ordinary work dinner would unravel my life in ways I never imagined. My name is Lucas Harper, 32, a graphic designer at Cascade Creative, a mid-sized marketing firm where ambition and caffeine kept us alive. I'd spent 3 years clawing my way up, proving my worth through late nights and bold designs. Ethan Caldwell, my boss, was the kind of man who commanded a room without trying mid-30s. Sharp jawline, eyes that could pin you in place or make you feel like the only person in the world. He was openly gay, confident in a way I envied, while I kept my own truth buried deep, locked behind a facade of just not the right time for relationships. That night, Ethan had insisted on dinner to celebrate landing a major client. "You deserve this, Lucas," he'd said, his voice low and earnest, stirring something in me I couldn't name. We drove to La Mer, a waterfront restaurant with candlelit tables and a view of Puget Sound. The air smelled of salt and expensive wine, and as we sat, I felt the weight of his gaze. "You've been quiet lately," he said, swirling his glass. "Something on your mind?" I forced a laugh, deflecting. "Just work. You know. Deadlines." But Ethan didn't buy it. He never did. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You don't have to hide with me, Lucas." My pulse spiked. Did he know? How could he? I'd been so careful, keeping my personal life a blank slate, dodging questions about weekend plans or dating. Yet his words felt like a key turning in a lock I'd bolted shut. The waiter arrived, breaking the moment, and we ordered salmon for me, steak for him. As the night wore on, conversation flowed easily, design trends, client quirks, the way Seattle's fog made everything feel like a dream. But beneath it all, a current ran between us, electric and dangerous. I caught myself watching his hands, the way they moved with purpose, and hated how much I wanted to reach out. Ethan poured more wine, his eyes catching mine. "You ever feel like you're running from something?" he asked, his tone soft but piercing. I froze. The question wasn't casual. It was a mirror, reflecting the part of me I'd spent years avoiding. I wanted to lie, to brush it off, but his gaze held me there, raw and exposed. "Sometimes," I admitted, barely above a whisper. He didn't push, but the air shifted. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of small talk and stolen glances, each one heavier than the last. As we left, the rain had stopped, but the chill in the air couldn't touch the warmth spreading through me or the fear. Ethan's words lingered. A quiet challenge, "You don't have to hide." Driving back, he was silent, but his presence filled the car. At my apartment, he paused, his hand on the gear shift. "Lucas," he said, his voice steady, "whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone." I nodded, unable to speak, and slipped out into the night, my heart a tangled mess of hope and dread. What had I admitted to him? To myself. The truth I'd buried for years was clawing its way to the surface. Anathema boss, of all people, was the one holding the shovel. The next morning, I woke with Ethan's words echoing in my head. "You don't have to carry it alone." My apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in as I replayed the dinner. His gaze, the way my defenses crumbled under his quiet intensity. I wasn't ready for this, not for him, not for the truth he seemed to see through me. At the office, I buried myself in work, sketching layouts for the new client's campaign. But Ethan was everywhere, his laugh in the break room, his name on emails, his cologne lingering in the hallway. By noon, I was a wreck, jumping when he appeared at my desk. "Lunch?" he asked. Casual, like nothing had happened. I mumbled an excuse about deadlines, and he left with a nod. But his eyes said he wasn't fooled. That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over his contact. I wanted to text him, to ask what he meant, but fear stopped me. Growing up in a small town, I'd learned early to keep my feelings locked away. My dad's voice still rang in my ears. Be a man, Lucas. Being a man meant silence, strength, and never admitting I was drawn to men, not women. I'd moved to Seattle to escape that, but the shame followed me, a shadow I couldn't outrun. The week blurred by, each day a tightrope walk of avoiding Ethan while craving his presence. On Friday, he called me into his office. "You've been dodging me," he said, leaning back in his chair, his tone half teasing, half serious. I stammered, but he waved it off. "We're presenting to the client next week. I need you sharp. Lucas, whatever's going on, let's talk." I nodded, my throat tight. He didn't push, but as I left, he added, "I meant what I said. You're not alone." His words were a lifeline, but I was too scared to grab it. That night, I went to a bar, hoping to drown the confusion. Instead, I saw a couple, two men laughing, hands intertwined, unashamed. I envied their freedom, their certainty. I left before finishing my drink. Saturday, I tried to distract myself with a run along the waterfront. The city was alive. Couples strolling, kids chasing seagulls. I felt like an outsider, watching a world I didn't belong to. My phone buzzed. Ethan. "Coffee tomorrow." No work talk. Just us. My heart raced. I typed sure before I could overthink it. Sunday morning, we met at a cafe in Capitol Hill, Seattle's heart of queer culture. Ethan looked relaxed in a sweater, his smile disarming. "You ever come here?" he asked, gesturing to the rainbow flags lining the street. I shrugged, mumbling something about being busy. He didn't press, but his questions grew personal. Me, family, my past, why I kept everyone at arm's length. I deflected, but each dodge felt weaker. Over coffee, he shared his story coming out at 20, losing friends, rebuilding his life. "It's not easy," he said, "but it's worth it." His honesty cracked something in me. I wanted to tell him everything: how I'd known I was gay since high school, how I dated women to fit in, how I hated myself for it. But the words wouldn't come. As we walked out, he brushed my arm, a fleeting touch that set my nerves on fire. "You'll figure it out, Lucas," he said, "and I'll be here." I watched him leave, torn between running after him and retreating to the safety of my silence. Monday's client presentation loomed, but my mind was on Ethan. His openness at the cafe had left me raw, like a wound exposed to air. I wanted to be that brave, but fear kept me tethered to the closet I'd built around myself. At work, we were a team again, polished and professional. Ethan's confidence steadied me as we pitched our designs. But every glance he sent my way felt personal, a reminder of our coffee date. The client loved our work, and afterward, Ethan clapped me on the shoulder. "We're a good team, Lucas." His touch lingered, and I hated how much I craved it. That night, he texted, "Drinks to celebrate." I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a quiet bar, the kind with dim lights and jazz humming in the background. Ethan was different here, less guarded, his laughter loose. "You killed it today," he said, raising his glass. I smiled, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying his stories, his ease with who he was. "Tell me about you," he said, leaning in. "Not the designer, the real Lucas." My stomach nodded. I talked about safe things me love for old vinyl records. Hiking in the Cascades, but he steered the conversation deeper. You ever let anyone in? He asked. The question hit like a punch. I sipped my drink. Stalling. It's complicated, I said finally. He didn't push, but his silence was louder than words. As we left, he stopped me at the door. I see you, Lucas. You don't have to hide from me. My breath caught. He was so close, his eyes searching mine. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he stepped back, giving me space I didn't want. The next day, I was a mess, replaying his words, his nearness. At lunch, I overheard coworkers gossiping about Ethan, how he dated a lawyer last year, how he was too intense for most guys. Jealousy flared. Unbidden. I had no right to feel this way, but I did. That evening, Ethan asked me to stay late to refine a project. The office was empty, the city lights glittering outside. We worked side by side, our shoulders brushing. You're good at this, he said, his voice soft. Not just the work. You're good at keeping people guessing. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Maybe I'm just private. He turned, his face inches from mine. Or maybe you're scared. My heart pounded. He was right, and I hated it. Before I could respond, he stepped back, breaking the moment. Let's call it a night, he said, but his eyes said more. I went home, my mind a storm. I couldn't keep doing this, pretending I was fine, pretending I didn't want him. But coming out meant risking everything, my job, my family's approval, the life I'd built. I stared at my reflection, searching for the courage Ethan saw in me. Friday, he invited me to a gallery opening, a client event. It's not work, he clarified. Just come. I said yes, knowing it was more than an invitation. It was a step toward something I couldn't name, something that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. The gallery opening was a swirl of color and conversation, but all I saw was Ethan. He moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands, laughing, his charisma pulling people in. I lingered by a painting, a chaotic burst of blues and reds, feeling out of place in my borrowed confidence. Ethan found me, a glass of champagne in hand. What do you think? He asked, nodding at the art. I mumbled something about the colors, but he wasn't asking about the painting. His eyes held mine, searching. You look good tonight, he said, his voice low. My face burned. I wasn't used to this attention. Compliments. The way he made me feel seen. We wandered the gallery, talking about everything and nothing. He shared stories of his first job, his dreams of starting his own firm. I listened, hanging on his words, letting myself imagine a world where I could be as open as him. You'd be great at it, I said, surprising myself. He smiled, and for a moment, the crowd faded away. Outside, the night was crisp, the city alive with possibility. Ethan suggested a walk, and we ended up at a park overlooking the skyline. The silence between us was comfortable, but charged. I like this, he said, his voice soft. Being with you. My heart stopped. I wanted to say it back, to tell him he was unraveling me, but fear choked the words. Instead, I asked, why me? He looked surprised, then thoughtful. Because you're real, Lucas. Even when you're hiding, you're real. His words hit hard, stripping away my defenses. I wanted to tell him I was gay, that I'd known for years but never said it out loud. But the moment passed, and I let it. The next week was torture. Ethan was professional at work, but his glances lingered, each one a question I couldn't answer. I started avoiding him again, taking lunch alone, leaving early. But he noticed. On Thursday, he cornered me in the break room. What's going on? Lucas, did I push too far? No, I lied. My voice shaky. I'm just figuring things out. He nodded, but his eyes were hurt. I hated myself for it. That night, I called my sister, Claire, the only person who knew my secret. I think I'm falling for him, I admitted, my voice breaking. She listened, then said, You deserve to be happy. Lucas, stop running. Her words stayed with me. Friday, Ethan asked me to dinner again. Just us, he said. No pressure. I agreed, my heart a battlefield of hope and fear. At the restaurant, he was quieter, more guarded. I don't want to scare you off, he said over dessert. But I feel something here. Do you? I froze, the truth clawing at my throat. I don't know, I whispered, hating the lie. His face fell, but he nodded. Okay, I'll wait. As we left, his hand brushed mine, and I didn't pull away. It was small, but it felt like a start. I couldn't sleep that night. Ethan's question, do you? Echoed, demanding an answer I wasn't ready to give. Every moment with him felt like a step toward a cliff, exhilarating and terrifying. At work, I threw myself into projects, hoping to drown out the noise in my head. But Ethan was there, his presence a constant pull. During a team meeting, his foot brushed mine under the table. It was accidental, but my body reacted like it was deliberate, heat flooding my cheeks. He didn't acknowledge it, but his eyes flicked to mine. A silent question. That afternoon, he asked me to review a campaign draft in his office. Alone, the air felt thick. You're distracted, he said, closing his laptop. Talk to me. I wanted to, but the words stuck. Instead, I blurted, Why do you care so much? He leaned back, his expression soft but serious. Because I see you, Lucas, and I think you're worth it. My chest tightened. No one had ever said that to minute my parents. Not my exes. I stood, muttering about needing air, and fled to the rooftop deck. The city stretched out below, indifferent to my turmoil. I thought of my dad, his disapproval, the years I'd spent pretending to be someone I wasn't. Ethan's belief in me felt like a gift I didn't deserve. When he found me on the roof, I didn't turn away. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely audible. He stepped closer. Of what? Of everything. Of this. I gestured between us. He didn't speak, just waited, giving me space to break or build myself up. I've never told anyone, I continued, my voice shaking. But I'm gay. The words hung in the air, heavy and freeing. Ethan's face softened, a smile breaking through. Thank you for telling me, he said. He didn't push, didn't ask for more, but his presence felt like a promise. The next day, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a layer of armor. Ethan noticed, his smiles warmer, his touches on my arm, my shoulder more frequent. At lunch, he suggested a weekend hike. Just friends, he said, but his eyes said more. I said yes, my heart racing. Saturday, we drove to the Cascades, the trail winding through pine and mist. We talked about everything: movies, dreams, fears. On a rocky outcrop, he stopped, his gaze intense. I like you, Lucas. A lot. My breath caught. I wanted to say it back, but fear still lingered. Instead, I nodded, and he smiled, understanding. As we hiked back, his hand brushed mine, and this time, I held on. It was brief, but it felt like a vow to try, to be brave, to let myself feel. Holding Ethan's hand, even for a moment, changed everything. It was a crack in the wall I'd built, letting light into a place I'd kept dark. But with light came shadows, doubts, fears, the weight of what this could mean. Monday, I walked into the office with a new kind of nervous energy. Ethan greeted me with a smile, professional but warm. We didn't talk about the hike, but the air between us was different, charged with possibility. During a break, he leaned close, whispering, "You okay?" I nodded, my heart pounding. That week, we fell into a rhythm: lunches, late-night work sessions, stolen moments of honesty. He told me about his family, how his mom had embraced him after he came out, how his dad took years to come around. I shared pieces of my own stormy dad's expectations, my mom's silence, the loneliness of hiding. Each confession felt like a step toward him. Friday, he invited me to his place for dinner. "I'm cooking," he said, grinning. "Don't expect Michelin star, but I won't poison you." I laughed, but my nerves were electric. His apartment was warm, modern, with bookshelves and art that screamed Ethan. He made pasta, and we sat on his couch, wine in hand, the city sparkling outside. "You're different lately," he said, his eyes soft, braver. I blushed, unsure how to respond. He set his glass down, leaning closer. "I meant what I said on the hike. I like you, Lucas, and I think you like me too." My heart raced. "I do," I admitted, the words spilling out. "But I'm new at this." He smiled, reaching for my hand. "We'll go slow," he said. "No pressure." His touch was steady, grounding. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was falling, I felt held. But reality crashed in the next day. My dad called, his voice gruff. "When you coming home, Lucas? Your mom misses you." The unspoken question hung heavy. "When are you settling down?" I deflected, but his words stirred old wounds. What would he say if he knew about Ethan? About me? At work, rumors started swirling. A coworker saw us at the gallery, noticed our closeness. "You and Ethan seem tight," she said, her tone probing. I brushed it off, but panic crept in. What if people found out? What if it cost me my job? I pulled back, canceling a coffee date with Ethan. He noticed, his text gentle but concerned. "Did I do something?" he asked when I finally saw him. I shook my head, but my silence said enough. "Talk to me," he urged. "Please." I wanted to, but fear was winning. I was falling for him, but the world I'd built safe, controlled, was crumbling, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to let it. The distance I put between me and Ethan felt like a betrayal of him, of myself. His text slowed, his smiles at work more guarded. I hated it, but I couldn't stop. Fear was a vice, squeezing tighter with every whispered rumor, every imagined judgment. At home, I called Claire again. "I'm screwing this up," I said, my voice breaking. "I like him, but I'm terrified." She was quiet, then firm. "You're not your dad, Lucas. You get to choose who you are." Her words hit hard, but they didn't erase the panic. Monday, Ethan asked me to stay late. The office was quiet, the tension between us thick. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low. "You're pulling away." I wanted to lie, to say it was work, but his eyes demanded truth. "I'm scared," I admitted, "of what people will think, of losing everything." He stepped closer, his voice steady. "You won't lose me, but you have to decide what you want." His words were a challenge, a plea. I left without answering, my heart a war zone. The next day, I saw him laughing with a coworker, and jealousy burned through me. I had no right to feel this way, but I did. That night, I went to a gay bar in Capitol Hill, desperate to feel something else. The music was loud, the crowd alive, but I felt more alone than ever. A guy approached, charming, but all I could think of was Ethan. I left, my resolve crumbling. Wednesday, I found Ethan in the break room. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded, leading me to his office. "I'm sorry," I said, the words tumbling out. "I'm scared, but I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." His face softened, and he reached for my hand. "You won't," he said, "but you need to be honest with me. With yourself." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. He pulled me into a hug, and for the first time, I let myself feel safe in his arms. Friday, we went to dinner again, this time at a quiet bistro. Over wine, he told me about his first love, the pain of heartbreak, the joy of living authentically. I shared my fears, my hopes, the weight of my dad's expectations. He listened, his hand over mine, and I felt seen in a way I never had. As we walked out, he stopped under a streetlight. "I want this," he said, his voice raw. "But only if you do." I took a breath, then kissed him. It was brief, tentative, but it felt like coming home. That kiss changed everything. It was a line crossed, a door opened, and there was no going back. Ethan's smile afterward, soft and certain, stayed with me, a beacon in the storm of my doubts. The next week, we were careful at work, but the secret we shared hummed between us. Stolen glances, brushed hands, quiet lunches in tucked-away cafes. I was falling, hard, and for the first time, I didn't want to stop. But the world wasn't as kind. Rumors grew louder. Coworkers stared sharper. I overheard a snide comment in the break room. "Ethan's got a new favorite." My stomach churned, but Ethan just shrugged when I told him. "Let them talk," he said. "They don't matter." I wished I had his strength. At home, I called my parents, testing the waters. "I met someone," I said, keeping it vague. My dad's silence was deafening. My mom's questions clipped. "Is it serious?" she asked. I couldn't answer. "Not yet." Saturday, Ethan took me to a pride event in Capitol Hill. The streets were alive with color, music, people unapologetically themselves. I felt exposed, but Ethan's hand in mine grounded me. "This is who you are," he said, his voice gentle. "And it's beautiful." Tears pricked my eyes. For the first time, I believed him. But Monday brought a reckoning. Our HR manager called me in, her face neutral. "There's talk about you and Ethan," she said. "It's creating tension. Is there anything I should know?" My heart sank. I denied anything unprofessional. But the warning was clear: be careful. I told Ethan, expecting him to pull back. Instead, he doubled down. "I don't care about the office politics," he said. "I care about you." His words were a lifeline, but the fear lingered. What if we lost our jobs? What if this cost him his career? That night, I made a choice. I invited Ethan to my place. Cooked for him badly, but he laughed. Over cheap wine. I told him everything: my dad's disapproval, my years of hiding, my fear of losing him. He listened, then kissed me, slow and certain. "We'll face it together," he said. Months later, I came out to my parents. It was messy. Dad hung up. My mom cried, but Claire was there, cheering me on. Ethan and I moved in together, carving out a life that felt like ours. The office rumors faded, and we proved our worth with every project. Looking back, that first dinner was the spark. Ethan's words over wine, "You don't have to hide," still haunt me. Not with fear, but with gratitude. They broke me open, set me free. And every day, I choose him. Choose us. Choose the man I've always been.